Hi, I'm Becca Pad, the Library Director at the College for Creative Studies, and today I'll be talking to you about citing your sources, how to do it, and why citations matter. So the reason I think a lot of people think about citations is because they're afraid of plagiarizing, and a lot of times it can happen accidentally. So the different strategies we'll be talking about in terms of understanding citations will be helpful for you in your coursework. But I also want to think about citations not just from a place of fear of being afraid of making a mistake, but thinking about how when we make creative works or scholarly works in the classroom, citations allow other people to get a sense of how our work fits into a larger scholarly conversation around a topic, right? So citations, I like to think of them as a scholarly roadmap. So having citations in my paper allows other people to connect my work to a larger conversation around a topic, and it acts as a network to do so. So there's different citation styles, and the one that is commonly used at CCS and that we're going to be talking about today is MLA. Other styles are Chicago and APA, so different disciplines use different kinds of styles, and there's different rules for different citation styles. And what they do is within a discipline, they allow different people to sort of understand the rules and, again, help to have other researchers or readers of your paper be able to find information easily that you're talking about. So there's different parts of a citation, and I want to go through that with you now. So the easiest way to think about citations is that they are like addresses, right? So on the left-hand side, we have the CCS library's address, and there's different parts of an address. And we need to use the different parts of an address every time we submit something in the mail, because it allows the post office to be able to get our package or our letter to the right recipient. Similarly, a citation allows us to be able to tell other people how to find a source that we used if they want to find more information on it or read it themselves. So you can see on the right-hand side, we have a version of the Harry Potter book, and it tells us different pieces of information. So similar to an address, a citation also has parts, and in this case, it's the author, title, publisher, and publication. So not all citations are the same. There's not a specific formula. It really depends on what the type of information source you're referencing is. There are different kinds of information that you'll see a pattern of including, and you can look for that. But what we'll do later is we'll show you some different places to be able to find this information. So we don't expect you in the library or at the college to memorize this yourself, but to get a basic understanding and then to know where to look to find the rules so that you can format things correctly. Okay, so I just am going to walk through a few different types of citations so that you can see how they're broken up by different parts, right? So again, thinking about the citation as a scholarly address. In this case, this version of Harry Potter has two authors because it was a different printing. And you can see we start with our authors. We have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which is our title. We have the publisher and the date. So those are the parts of a book citation in MLA. Next, we have a journal, and you can see we have a little bit more information that's included. And this is because, when we have a book, it's just one thing. If we were talking about a specific chapter, it would start to look more like this. So the New York Times, which is what this journal citation is for, has a lot of articles in it. And so we need a little bit more information to be able to find exactly what we're looking for. So in this case, we have the author, the article title, right? So not just the name of the newspaper or journal, which in this case is the New York Times, but we need to know what within it we were looking at. The edition or issue, right? So there's not, unlike a book where there might just be one copy, we know that newspapers sometimes put out daily editions or issues, and so we need to be able to know, or multiple potentially issues in a day, we need to know which copy we're looking at. So in this case, it's the late edition, the publication date, and then again, the page number. So the more specific we can be in the information we provide, the more it helps other people to find the same source if they want to read it too. And lastly, just another example is an example of an image. So, or an image citation, I should say. So in this case, we have a Goya, and we start with the author's name. And if we scroll back for a second, you can see it's, even though it's a different kind of source, right? It's not a printed scholarly text. It's an image. It follows the same structure, right? Again, because it's an address. So it helps us to have a basic format that we follow. So we start with the artist, and then we have the title of the work, the date of creation, and the museum or gallery. So that hopefully helps you to have a little bit of a sense of the parts that go into a citation. And now I'm going to talk about the different types of citations you may be using in your work. So when we're thinking more about academic work, so like traditional scholarly writing or research papers, there's two different types of citations that you'll probably need to use. The first is called an in-text citation. And an in-text citation is exactly what it says it is. It's in the text, right? So it's a shortened citation that acts as a roadmap to the bibliography. So that allows me to know who to look for when I look at the bibliography. The bibliography may be something that you're more familiar with, and this is the list at an end of a paper or at the end of a book that tells us detailed information. So the type of citations we were just looking at would be appropriate for a bibliography. So they're very detailed, and they help us to find the other source. What the in-text citation does is it helps us to find the bibliography. So each step of the citation process really is a link to getting back to the original information that you're referencing. So we looked at some examples of longer citations that would go in bibliographies. Now I'm going to show you some in-text citations. And there's different ways you can use in-text citations, and you'll want to talk to your professor to see what's most appropriate or what they want you to be using, but I'll just walk through the three types of in-text citations you might use. So the first that you are probably familiar with is a direct quote. So this means that I'm taking text that was in a paper I read, and I'm plugging it into my paper with obviously using quotation marks. But there's a few reasons we would use a direct quote, which include that the author's words are so powerful that I can't replicate it in a different way. The most power is in their own language, and that adds to your argument. You might want to include a direct quote if you disagree with the author's argument, or to highlight a powerful passage or phrase, which we talked about. So the next type of in-text citation is called paraphrasing. And paraphrasing is when you're putting a passage of text into your own words, right? So this doesn't mean that I'm looking at a direct quote and I'm changing certain words out of it, but it means taking a passage and thinking about it and rephrasing it and reframing it. And the reason we do this is to avoid overusing quotes. So good writing allows us to have some narrative voice, which means that we're not just plugging in tons of quotes into our paper, but we're having a flow. We're having a flow to the point and the discussion that we're trying to make. It also, sometimes it's not as important to say it exactly as the author said it. And so this would be a time when paraphrasing versus a direct quote is more appropriate too. Or if you're reporting out data or statistics that you've found. So the last in-text citation type is called summarizing. And summarizing is similar to paraphrasing in that you're not copying someone's words directly, but you're sort of synthesizing or, bringing together their ideas into your paper, right? And so when we do that, we still need to give credit because it wasn't our idea originally. So when we're summarizing, we're putting the main idea into our own words. And the difference is that it's something that is high level, right? So it might be that I'm summarizing in a few sentences an entire paper that I read. So it helps to establish background or overview of a topic. It describes the knowledge of several sources at once, potentially, and it helps to really pinpoint the main idea of a source. So this slide outlines the major differences between paraphrasing and summarizing. So for paraphrasing, it's taking a direct quote and putting it into your own words. So it's more specific to a certain argument or point in a text instead of summarizing, which is looking at main ideas and themes, and it's much shorter than the original text. So you might summarize multiple paragraphs into one sentence. So earlier we talked about the different parts of a citation, right? And we looked at a full citation, which would be something that would go in our bibliography. In this case, what we had said before is that our InText citations map and link us to our bibliography, which then maps or links us to our source. But how do we do that, right? It's not just like someone wouldn't just know unless we give them a clue. And how we do that is by formatting an InText citation. So you can see that there's two different examples on this slide that are referencing the same point, right? They're referencing the same paper or source, and how they do it is differently. So the top example shows a sentence that was drafted, and then at the end, it has the author's last name and the page number in parentheses. The example beneath it, we don't include the author's last name in the parentheses at the end of the sentence because we start our sentence by mentioning them, right? So whatever isn't mentioned in the text of your sentence should be included in terms of the parts of an in-text citation at the end. And usually it would be a case like this where maybe we start our sentence by saying the author's name first. Okay, so hopefully that helps to give you a little bit of an idea of the different parts of a citation, and as well as when we use different kinds of citations and how you can really use them to enhance your writing and your academic research. So before we jump into looking at a few things on the library website, I just want to give you a few tips for organizing your research and your citations as you're getting started. So what I would most strongly recommend is that you don't wait till the end to go back and hunt for all the citations as you're formatting your paper. That's something that I think a lot of people do when they're starting out as a researcher and a writer, but it creates a headache and a lot of extra work for you. So instead what I would do, and what you should do in terms of where you track and keep your notes is whatever you're most comfortable with, right? So maybe you keep a notebook that you use for your research paper, or maybe you keep a Google Doc, or maybe you make Google Slides. So where you track this information, I think is really up to you, but how you do it is important. And what I would say is as you're reading different sources, right? Say I have a paper for my class. As I'm reading the source, I'm going to take some notes. And what I want to do is maybe put my citation information at the top. And for different notes, just jot down the page number, right? It might seem like a pain as you're starting to develop new research habits and strategies, but as you do it, it will feel more natural, and really it will create a lot less work for you and help you to make a stronger piece of academic writing to turn in. And the other thing too is a good strategy, instead of writing down direct quotes, right? Think about what we said. So direct quotes really should only be used if it's super strong language, if there's no other or better way to say whatever the author said. But a lot of times that's not the case, and it makes for better writing, like we said, when we summarize or paraphrase. But if we do that, a good step to avoid accidental plagiarism is in your notes to write down your own words, right? Instead of just copying the quote into your notes, write down what you think about the sentence, or write it down in your own language, so then when you go back to it, right, and you reformulate that into your paper or into, a few sentences, it'll be another step removed from the original source. So it helps you to have distance from the original work, which will help you to avoid plagiarism. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and share, share another screen with you. So this is the library website, and you can access it from the Blackboard's quick links. So I'll go to Blackboard real quick so you can see. So if we scroll up, we can see library homepage, right? So it'll take us right back to where we were. And so from this homepage, we can get to a few different resources that will help you with your research and writing as you're working on projects for your classes. So we can go to Research Help, and you can see we have different guides listed here. We can go to Subject, and in this case, I'll scroll down to Liberal Arts, and you can see there's a lot of different guides. So you can look at the guide that most relates to your subject, or you can look at the Research and Writing Guide, and this will show up in every department list on our website. So the Research and Writing Guide is a great place to get started. And you've watched through the slides about citations, but that might leave you with other questions, or you may want a place to come back to later. And so the Research and Writing Guide is the place you can come back to. So it goes through some general resources, as well as information about the Student Success Center is here. And then it talks about the research process. So if you need other strategies for researching, that's a good place to look, as well as writing. So in this case, we're going to look at liberal arts writing. And so it talks about information on writing a research paper, as well as an annotated bibliography, using quotations, right? So what we talked about, it's right here. You should avoid using too many quotations in your paper. So what we did is we went through some strategies to help you avoid that, but this information lives on our website as well, so you can come back to it later. And then we have the Academic Integrity Guide. So this is a great guide for you in terms of citation information and resources. So we can go to Citation Resources, and you can see we have some general information as well as links to tools that will help you. So we have ZBib, which is a citation management tool. So that'll help you if you need help figuring out how to format citations. It will generate them for you. And then we have a link to the OWL Purdue. So the OWL Purdue is a great source. It's one that I personally like to use in my own research and when I'm helping students. It's really straightforward. It also has a citation generator here, so you can use theirs as well, right? A website, a book, a journal, you can put in the name, or a URL if it's an online magazine or a website, and it will generate a citation for you. So you can see here that there's tons of information that will help you as you're working on your papers in terms of how to format your paper. There's different sample papers, just if you haven't really written a lot of research papers before, for how to organize your paper. There's also different works cited pages. So if you have questions about journals or periodicals, there's a lot of different examples here too, because we can't, in some cases we use the citation generators, but it's really good to know where you can go to look to make sure that citation is correct. Because one thing you do want to keep in mind is that you do want to check citations that are made in citation generators to make sure it's not including weird information, because sometimes that happens. It's a good starting point, but you need to know how to make sure the information you're submitting is correct. So let's see, I just wanted to also point out, if I can find it really quickly, InText citations, right? So we really briefly talked about InText citations, and you might be saying, oh my gosh, well, she mentioned InText citations, but I don't really know much about them. You can go to the OWL, and again, the OWL is linked from the library's academic integrity page. So it's all there. You just need to go to the website if you are feeling overwhelmed about finding all of this stuff, and it will link out from there. But this will talk about different examples, right, that we were looking at in our slides for formatting in-text citations. So hopefully that will help you to get started. And so lastly, I'm going to go back to the library homepage. So if you have any questions about citations or doing your research and you need more help, please go to our Ask a Librarian chat. So you can chat with a librarian right away. You can also make a reference help appointment here. So if you need help, please let us know. We're happy to help you anytime, and hopefully this will help you get started as you're thinking about citations. Thanks so much.